What's up guys, it's Jack here and welcome back to a brand new video. And today, as you guys can tell, you guys can't see my face. Unfortunately, the camera broke and I had to record this whole thing and the camera wasn't even working. So you're only going to hear my audio today. I decided to play UFC and I gotta say, this game was absolutely fire. So you have to watch me play the game. I'm Corey Sandhagen, the guy is Sean O'Malley, and we're going to get into the questions in a second. But please join the membership if you guys want, if you guys have the money. No pressure, of course. You guys will still be getting the regular content, but it's just a little something to help support me if you guys want to give me that extra support and that extra love. So look into the tiers. I didn't want to make them too expensive. All you gotta do is click the join button or click the link in the description to make it easier for yourself. Anyway guys, let's get into the questions. Alright, first question. Who is your favorite commentator and explain why? So my favorite commentator, a lot of people shit on the UFC commentary. People say, oh, it's biased, oh, it's bad. I actually don't mind the commentary for the most part. There isn't really anything that makes me specifically upset about the commentary. Who's my favorite commentator? I'd have to say DC, although yes, I know he can be biased, especially to the AKA guys. I was pretty impressed with his commentating on the last Islam fight against Charles. I thought he was very impartial in that fight. I mean, back in last October of 2021, he was very biased for Islam there when he was fighting Dan Hooker, I believe it was. And he's biased when he does those UFC 4 ranking. But other than that, I actually think that he's a pretty good commentator. He's very knowledgeable. He's definitely up there, one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time. And honestly, you could probably make an argument for one of the greatest ever of all time. So yeah, I'm going to have to go with DC. I also like Paul Felder, Dominic Cruz. Our next question comes from Manuel Luna. Do you think Kane can make a comeback, or is it completely off the table? Completely hypothetical, to be honest. So obviously, there's a lot of ways to interpret this question. If you mean an MMA comeback, I would say no. I mean, Cain Velasquez is old. I don't think he's going to come back. If you mean comeback as in win the case, I mean, honestly, I don't think that's likely either. Look, obviously I know this whole case is very sensitive with the SA allegations, and apparently that was why he was going after the guy. And as unfortunate as that is, at the end of the day, the laws are the laws and you can't just shoot people. The laws are the laws, and I don't really see him winning the case. Now, if you mean a comeback in the MMA community and making appearances at, WWE and, commentator positions and things like that, I mean, it's likely, but up until I think the point where he's gonna go to jail. I mean, look, I think certain brands aren't gonna want to mess with Cain Velasquez, but at the end of the day, the UFC fans already support him. Dana White already supports him. A lot of the UFC roster already supports him. Alright, Marty419 asks, have you or do you follow WWE? So not to make this one short or dry or anything, but truth is I honestly don't. And I don't hate it. A lot of people shit on WWE. What I always say is there's nothing really different between WWE and a Broadway play. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it's the truth, because look, both things are scripted, both things are live, and let's be real, the WWE requires a lot of talent, so don't shit on WWE there. And Harry T asks, what high profile free agent / PFL fighter can Jake Paul beat? I think he beats Mike Perry. Yeah, so definitely Mike Perry is up there, and people don't realize how big of a difference boxing is to MMA. But the thing is look, having a boxing heavy style is really bad for MMA. Look at Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier. Conor McGregor is way more high level and more of a mixed martial artist than Jake Paul. Let's also take Kamaru Usman. The reason he got knocked out was using boxing head movement technique, slipping his head to the side without worrying about a head kick. That was why he got knocked out, and we're talking about Kamaru Usman, the former pound for pound #1 fighter. Jake Paul is going to have a lot of problems transitioning to MMA, and if he works hard in it, yes, he might be able to do well, and yes, he might be able to beat the likes of Mike Perry, and on my opinion, I think he might be Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz is definitely the better mixed martial artist, but Nate Diaz doesn't really go shoot for takedowns, so the jiu-jitsu really isn't going to be effective against Jake, I don't think. So yeah, I think he beats Mike Perry. I mean, Mike Perry is more of a boxing style. Imagine Jake Paul fights Diego Sanchez. A fight I wouldn't mind, Kevin Lee versus Jake Paul. Let's get that one going. I'd probably favor Kevin Lee, though, in that fight. Alright, Trevor's30 asks, if you're only 19 and you know so much about MMA, would you ever consider becoming a judge? I would like to be a judge because I can't be bought, and I'm not going to be biased. I think we need better judges. We're starting to get better referees, so I would like to do that as well. Funny that you asked this, because there was a period of my life where I did consider becoming a referee. I didn't even look up the requirements or what I had to do for this, but there was a time where I thought about it and wanted to give back to the sport, and hey, I wouldn't mind being a referee. I mean, it also sounds a little fun too, but I wanted to do it on the local circuit and do it in my free time. Nothing too serious, nothing as a serious job, but just do it every so often, or at least learn how to. I thought it would be a fun experience, but I never really got that far. Alright, Guido Photo asks, what if they make Leon versus Jorge and Jorge win? With Usman out, it makes it a little more interesting because anyone at the top 5 could challenge for the belt. So yes, of course. Now, Ali Abdelaziz did tweet and say, hey, Kamaru Usman is going to fight Leon Edwards March 18th, basically saying he'd be ready for London, and Leon, in my opinion, has 2 massive fights. Usman 3 rematch, or a Jorge Masvidal fight. Now, I did think if Jorge beats Leon, that would be pretty crazy considering that Usman already beat Jorge Jorge, and then they would have some unnecessary trilogy. I do still have my doubts though that Kamaru Usman will make that March 18th date, but we'll have to see. So far, the UFC hasn't said anything, so it's really up in the air. King Louis asks, how would a prime Jose Aldo do against these fighters at bantamweight? 1. Henry Cejudo. 2. Dominic Cruz. 3. TJ Dillashaw. 4. Sean O'Malley. 5. Cody Garbrandt. So I think one of the things against Henry Cejudo you got to consider is Jose Aldo's takedown defense. Now, Jose Aldo has great takedown defense. He's traditionally done well against wrestlers and would have the height advantage there. Now, prime Jose Aldo at bantamweight, I mean, Henry Cejudo is good too, but I'm going to lean towards Jose Aldo just because of the takedown defense and the striking, but that one's a little close. Now, Dominic Cruz is very close. Obviously, Dominic Cruz utilizing his movement, and you got to think Jose Aldo's leg kicks will definitely add up there. So the game plan for Jose Aldo, kick Dominic Cruz's legs, slow down Dominic Cruz, and then pick him apart on the feet. And if that plan works, I mean, Jose Aldo wins. But the problem is that Dominic Cruz's movement is so slick, and you can mix in the wrestling too. That one's a close one, but maybe Dominic, maybe Jose, that one's like 50-50. TJ Dillashaw, prime, I mean, this is another one. I think it's a 50-50 fight. I think it's a close fight. TJ could always incorporate that wrestling and mix it up. Confuse Jose Aldo. I think he would land the takedowns because he'd be able to mix it up a little better than Henry Cejudo would, in my opinion. TJ's a lot more comfortable on the feet, so that one's pretty close. And for Sean O'Malley, obviously Sean O'Malley has always had problems with leg kick. Obviously a red flag there. I think if it's like a 5-round fight, I think Jose wins. Maybe a 3-round fight, it's a bit closer, but yeah, I think Jose. 5, Cody Garbrandt before his chin evaporated. I'd have to go with Jose Aldo, easy on that one. Alright, Emotionless Artist asks, can you tell us your setup, mic, and editing software? So normally I use my webcam that I have. I don't have the exact, and I use my PC. I use Streamlabs or just record it and connect my mic, which is a Blue Snowball. And I usually edit with like Filmora, but right now because of my PC, I'm currently using DaVinci on a Mac, using the same microphone, but I'm using my phone as a camera. So JB asks, how come UFC fighters are allowed to go to other combat sports like grappling events but not boxing? So the reason for this is, look, grappling events are simply not high risk, you know? At the end of the day, the reason Dana doesn't send a fighter like Jorge Masvidal to fight Jake Paul is because it's a big risk. Jake Paul could knock out Jorge Masvidal and make Jorge Masvidal look like an idiot. Or let's say he fights Kamaru Usman. Remember when they were talking about that? If Jake Paul flatlined Kamaru Usman, Usman is a joke. He's no longer the #1 pound-for-pound fighter. He's a joke. But let's say that Usman enters a grappling match, gets submitted. Hey, a lot of people aren't really going to look at that. I mean, maybe yes because it's Usman, but let's say it was Jorge Masvidal. Not a lot of people are going to look down on Jorge because of that, because it's grappling. And also, grappling is high on injury, you know, doing those matches. But boxing is, you can get a concussion, you could break your hand. There's so many factors. And also, the second part of that is the grappling matches are usually connected with the UFC. Rose Namajunas' last grappling match was on UFC Fight Pass, so that's why it's all connected. Alright, OLW asks, what are your thoughts on the PFL, and how would you speculate the PFL holds up to the UFC as a competitor of the brand? So as I've said, look, PFL in my opinion is the second best organization. I received some heat about this in the comment section. I thought this was pretty non-controversial, but apparently it is. I think that it's number 2. I think they have the better names. You got Brendan Loughnane, Larissa Pacheco, Kayla Harrison. I mean, there's so many household names there that haven't even been in the UFC yet. And I think that they're so young. I think that they're doing things the right way. I think their setup is really nice, the way that they live count the strike and show the live betting odds. There's a lot of cool things to like about the PFL. And especially their tournament, they're $1 million. There's high stakes. So the problem with the PFL for me is I'm concerned about their spending. I mean, they just gave away $6 million on a pay-per-view that most likely flopped. If the PFL could keep spending, great. And who knows, maybe in 5-10 years time, maybe the PFL can be a close second to the UFC. But as of right now, the UFC just has to keep doing what they're doing at this momentum, and the PFL will never catch up to them. But the UFC can't afford to be lacking. They have to keep delivering, because otherwise the PFL might actually catch up. Alright, next question. What are your thoughts on Beneil's comments about Dustin? I personally think it's a garbage take. So for those of you guys that don't know, Beneil Dariush went on an interview and basically said that Dustin Poirier should consider retiring. Now that was the headline. So that take, of course I disagree with, but the thing that a lot of people don't know is because they didn't read the article and didn't read the actual interview that Beneil Dariush did. Beneil was saying that. Beneil was talking about Dustin Poirier saying that Beneil isn't a name that excites him. And Beneil was like, hey, listen, if Dustin is concerned about fighting names that aren't big, then he should retire right now because there are so many very great fighters with no name that are coming up in the lightweight division. That was at least how I interpreted it. And I agree with Beneil there. You know, Beneil brings up a good point because there's a lot of guys, Arman Sarukian, Mateus Gamera. There were so many top guys. And Dustin Poirier can't just keep fighting these top name guys. He's gonna eventually run into guys like Rafael Fazia, Mateus Gamera, Arman Sarukian just got a good win. So I could see Beneil Dariush's point there. Who do you think punches harder, Francis Ngannou or Deontay Wilder? So I'm gonna go Deontay Wilder. I thought about this a lot in the past. Deontay Wilder just has freakish power. I mean, you saw in his last fight. Now the other thing to consider is Deontay Wilder has 10-ounce gloves, while Francis Ngannou has 4-ounce. which plays Deontay Wilder's favor. But the only thing is Francis Ngannou does knock out people with multiple punches, hooks, uppercuts, right hands, while Deontay Wilder really only has that right hand power. But that right hand is absolutely crazy. Alright, next question comes from YasserWad2853. Who was the first MMA fighter that got you interested in the MMA world? Yeah, so I talked about this in the last one a little bit about what fight, but I think everyone's is the same, or at least a lot of people. Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor absolutely blew up the sport, and I was one of those people that got affected by him. The first fight that I ever saw that really grasped my interest was Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor 2. I love the storyline of Conor coming back after a loss, after a big upset loss, learning from his mistake, and going into a dogfight, and had a really solid game plan going into it. It was all you wanted. It was really like a movie level fight. So I would have to say Conor McGregor was the one that got me into the UFC. Final question comes from Cade Edits. Teixeira vs. Hill prediction. Now usually, as you guys know, I usually save my predictions for the day before the fight, and it's a little bit early, but you know what, guys? If you guys stayed around for this Q&A, I want to say thank you, and I'm going to give you my prediction, what I think right now. This could change because I usually like to study some tape fight week, pay attention to their habits, what I think. So right now, here's how I see the fight go. Jamal Hill, big time power. I think he's gonna put Glover in some tricky spots, maybe catch Glover on a few instances. I don't think he drops Glover, but hey, maybe Glover gets woken up. Maybe Glover says, hey man, I gotta pay attention to that right hand. But I think Glover finds the grappling. I think he grapples him early. Jamal Hill gets tired, fades later on, and I think Glover either gets a TKO or he gets a submission. I think Glover wins the fight by finish. Alright, that was all the questions. Thank you guys for watching so much. If you guys haven't subscribed already, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell button. Q&A next Thursday, so please leave comments below if you have any other questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like if you did, and I'll see you guys in the next one.